Hi everyone, welcome to the ACI webinar demonstrated with Appraiser Genie. My name is Angelia and I'm the Sales and Support Lead for Appraiser Genie, and I will be the host today. And we will be going through the entire process of using Genie with ACI specifically. What you see on the back of the screen is a report that I've opened for ACI, and generally you'll want to have the report open before you attempt to launch Genie. We transfer the subject information to Genie to produce all your adjustments, calculations, etc. And I will be recording this webinar. This will be posted online at www.appraisergenie.com. If you click on the training tab, you will be able to see this video. Alright, so one requirement with Appraiser Genie is we do have to map your MLS, and your MLS needs to have a custom export created. Basically, it's just an order of fields that are stored under your MLS login. We're compatible with pretty much any MLS as long as they provide an export or a download option. You should see this option after you create your neighborhood search and view your results. Now, as you see here, Appraiser Genie was designed to analyze the full neighborhood. Thus, when you log into your MLS, you're simply defining the neighborhood boundaries to be used to fill in the neighborhood winning at housing and trends. You will further narrow this down in Genie to provide the true comp search in the 1004MC. Now, I don't go over the MLS search because MLSs are so different state to state. Some of you may use RealTrax, Northstar. Those in particular don't require any setup, neither does HAR, which is the Houston MLS. If you guys utilize any of those three, we don't have any formatting that we need to set up. You just basically download the file. It should say export all fields or a similar option. You'll just download it as is. If this is the case, you guys can just contact us directly and we can schedule you for a one-on-one demo. We'll walk you through the whole program, or of course you can go back to our website and watch one of these training videos, which will also show you how to use the software beginning to end. Okay, so I've already completed the MLS setup process. I've actually already logged into the MLS, created the neighborhood search based on the subject I'm using, and I simply saved that to my computer in a CSV file, which is basically an Excel format file. So down here, we're going to go ahead and navigate to where that file is. And I have a particular folder, of course, I put this in. This is the file here. This is the subject we're going to use today, and this is the MLS export created from the MLS and simply saved to my computer. So we're going to double click this and look at it. Okay, so what you see here is a list of comps. This is my entire neighborhood search based on the parameters I define in the MLS. And we get asked a lot exactly what you should narrow by as far as the MLS, and that's up to you. You can narrow it by the map search. If you just want to draw a radius around the subject, you can. You'll narrow it just like you normally do, be it high school, by subdivision, by zip code, whatever criteria you normally do as far as defining the neighborhood. So these fields right here, these column headers, you're going to notice they're in a specific ordering. We start with status being sold, active, pending, and then we go to zip code, street, etc. So these field headers here, this is the template that is stored under my MLS when I log in and I click export. There's a drop-down box that lets me choose Appraiser Genie, and it just makes sure that the fields, when they're downloaded to my computer, they're in the correct format so Genie can read the file. If you need help with this or it's confusing to you, I promise it's easy. You can email mls@appraisergenie.com. You'll also want to email them if you want us to set this up for you. We don't charge you anything. You don't have to send us any sensitive information. So make sure this step is completed before you try to use Appraiser Genie, or it will not work. Except, like I said, if you use RealTrax, Northstar, HAR, any of those. Alright, so if we scroll down, we're going to see all of the comps. My neighborhood search consisted of 84. So these comps I'm going to want to import into Genie. We're going to further narrow down the 84 you see here, and that's going to provide my 1004MC, my true comp search. All my adjustments will be ran off the narrowed search. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. I just want to show you guys what the file actually looked like. Okay, so we're going to minimize that, and we're going to go ahead and close out of this. Now we're back to ACI. Generally, you'll want to log in, do the MLS search, save it to your computer. Do that first because Genie is cloud-based. Therefore, if you navigate away from Appraiser Genie for too long, it could time out. So just go ahead and do the MLS search first, save it, then go to ACI and open up a report you want to use with Genie. So you'll notice it's pretty barren. I have the address here, city, state, zip, county, and I left primarily the rest of this empty. You can go ahead and fill out this information, all this narrative here, the neighborhood name, all of this down here. You can fill it out if you want. We don't do anything with it. Same thing with neighborhood characteristics. We don't override it. We don't do anything with that. And we don't do anything with this present land use. Now these two middle boxes, to 1 unit housing trends, 1 unit housing, we do calculate this or actually fill this in for you based on that neighborhood search that you saved on your computer. So these two sections we will fill in for you, so you can just leave it blank. We're going to go down to page 2, which is my sales grid. On the left-hand side I have my subject information. You'll notice I filled out pretty much everything I could, as accurate as I could. This is going to be transferred into Appraiser Genie later, and we're going to go ahead and run the total replacement cost. We send this to billingcosts.net, and they return the total replacement cost based on this subject criteria here. It's important to make sure the quality rating of the subject is accurate because cost approach is dependent upon that as far as billingcosts.net is concerned. I'm going to go and erase this. There's nothing in there. Now these blank row 1, blank row 2, blank row 3, I specifically put fireplace in row 1 and pool in row 3, and this will make sense later because we do actually give you guys a fireplace or a pool adjustment if applicable, and if we do give you an adjustment and you do decide to use it in the report, it will actually just always go in this first row 1 if it's a fireplace, and if it's a pool it will always go in blank row 3. That'll make sense later, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that. And you'll notice everything else I left blank. We do complete the cost approach for you. The 1004MC, this is just information in there, but we do actually do this for you as well. So this will change, or I recommend just leaving it blank. We'll fill that in for you. We'll fill in this concession comment here, and we will fill in REO comments if applicable. So we're going to go back up. And as stated, you can have more than what you see in this report, that's fine. I just put pretty much bare basics so you can see, you know, what the minimum is when you use Genie. Okay, so what we want to do now is we'll want to go ahead and launch Appraiser Genie to get started. Now with ACI under e-services, you're going to want to go down to import analysis data, and you're going to see Appraiser Genie listed here. Now, if this is not listed here, you always need to make sure you run the most recent ACI web update. And there's actually a small file you have to download and install before you can use Genie. And we send you guys the link after you get your MLS mapped and whatnot. So you won't be able to do this immediately without having your MLS set up first. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click on Appraiser Genie. Now this is going to launch automatically. You're going to have a little pop-up box. You do not need to do anything with this box. Real quick, actually, I forgot I was running a beta program, so hold on one second. Sorry about that, I forgot to take that out. You guys won't be subjective to this at all, so let me close this and relaunch it. Otherwise, you're not going to see the actual version, so I'm going to close ACI real quick. Now I have to actually close ACI down completely and relaunch it. Alright, so I'm just going to open ACI here. I'm going to go back to that report I had open. Alright, so we're going to start over. So this is the point where we're going to go back to e-services, import analysis data, Appraiser Genie. Now once again, we don't need to do anything here. We'll have that pop-up box in a minute. And that's just ACI's integration with us. This box is important. It has to stay open the entire duration. So you basically just ignore this, and then you'll have a window that pops open. And we recommend Chrome. So Genie is going to launch automatically for you. and it's going to launch with whatever default web browser you have set on your computer. We do not recommend Internet Explorer, which is this little icon down here. It's either going to look like this or older. Do not use Edge, which is the new Internet Explorer, or the older ones. They just simply do not run right. You'll have random errors. They're not actually even an error. So try to use Genie with Google Chrome or Firefox, whichever one you prefer. Okay, so what you'll see initially when you launch Genie is you're going to arrive at this registration or sign-in screen. Now, I already have an email and password. The very first time you launch Genie, you guys won't have one. So what you're going to do is go down here and click on registration. More importantly, if you're an ACI user, what you would want to do is sign up for the 10 free before you even see this page. So I'm going to go to our website. It's not our website. Alright, so AppraiserGenie.com. When you click on purchase here, for ACI specifically, you want to sign up for the 10 free. So what you'll do is you're going to click on this here link. When you click on here, this is the actual registration page, which is actually the same thing as clicking this down there, but you don't want to do that here. You want to fill out this registration page. You would just fill out all the information, and then when you get back to Appraiser Genie, you'll just sign in with the email and password you make there. So don't click registration, I misspoke. ACI, go to our website, sign up first there so you can get the 10 free, and then come back here and sign in with the email and password. So I already have an email and password, obviously. I'm going to leave that as I have it. And I want to remember me so I don't have to keep signing in every time, and click submit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to my defaults page. Now, I've used Genie quite a few times, obviously, so it's not going to exactly launch the way it would if you're a brand new user, so I'm going to show you how it does launch. You won't be taken to this page initially the very first time. I'm going to use this forward and backward arrow up top here, and I'm going to arrow all the way over until I can't anymore and click on defaults. This default tab, that's actually what you're going to see the very first time you launch Genie, so we're going to start here. So I just clicked on the tab. The little circle in the corner just lets me know that Genie's loading, so don't get click happy, just let it sit here for a little bit, and it should take us to the defaults on its own. Now keep in mind, when you have a remote software working like GoToMeeting, TeamViewer, or whatnot, they can slow the process down just because the process is running, it's affecting the speed and whatnot. So this should go a little quicker when you guys are running this on your own. Okay, so the first thing I want to change is the software. I am actually using ACI. There are other options available, but we're going to go ahead and click on ACI here. Now these defaults that you see, these are going to apply to every report. You can come back to defaults by clicking on the blue tab again, and you can change whatever you need to here as often as you need to. And as stated, they do apply to every report unless you come back here and change them. These little blue question marks, they're very helpful if you're not sure what you're supposed to do here. For example, under concessions, you can click the blue question mark, and Genie is going to tell you that we're looking for the maximum percentage of concessions customary for your area. Anything over the maximum will automatically be adjusted. So for example, if I put a 4% in that box and the comp has 5%, we only adjust for that 1% difference. And this is totally dependent on whether or not the MLS actually reports concessions. If they don't, then this would not do anything for you. If they do, just enter whatever's customary for your area. So for me, I'm going to put 3, which is a percentage. So anything over that 3% that's reported will adjust for as far as concessions, or if you just want to adjust for anything reported as far as concessions, just put a 0 there. Age variance, whatever number you place here, Genie's not going to adjust for age, and this is an adjustment. So later on in the Genie, when we provide you an age adjustment, if I put a 5 here, I'm telling Genie, don't make an age adjustment for the comps if they're within 5 years newer or older than the subject. Anything over that, please give me an age adjustment for. I don't want to adjust for the first 5 years, so I put that there. Or if you just want an age adjustment for all years difference, age variance, you can put a 0. Depends on you and what you typically do in your area. Same thing with site size variance. This is a percentage, so I'm putting 30 here. I don't want an adjustment for site if it's within 30% of my subject for the comps. Now anything over that 30% threshold, I do want a site adjustment, so I'm going to put a 30 there. If you typically adjust for all site size variance, you can put a 0 there. Subject previous sales years prior, comp previous sales years prior. These typically are defaulted. If they need to be changed depending on the report you're running, being FHA, whatever it is, you can change these here or leave them there. It's up to you. Minimum square foot to adjust. Whatever number I indicate in this box, I do not want Genie to provide an square foot adjustment. So for example, I don't typically adjust for the first 100 square feet difference subject to comp, so you can put 100 there. Anything over that 100 we will adjust for. Or you can put a 50, whatever's common for you. Adjustment rounding, whatever I have set here, that's just telling Genie when you provide me an adjustment, go ahead and round up to the nearest $100, $500, or $1,000. Obviously the lower, being 100, would be the most precise as far as an adjustment, but it's up to you as well. Comp export sort order, whatever I indicate in this drop down is the order in which I want the comps exported to the report. If you typically order them maybe by close date, contract date, distance from subject, you can select whatever option you'd like here. Close date's typically what I see, but it's up to you. Effective age, reconciled value, calculated adjustments. All of these checkboxes here are optional, meaning the effective age adjustment we will provide is for the subject. If you would prefer to provide your own effective age adjustment, deselect it. You'll complete that later on once you're back in the report, or leave it checked and we will provide this information for you. Same thing with reconciled value. The reconciled value is going to be the average between the net gross net dollar and quantity of adjustments. We'll break that down for you in a PDF and provide this info, or you can, as stated, complete it yourself. Calculated adjustments. These are just additional adjustments we can provide you, which come from buildingcost.net. So if you typically make a pool, fireplace, gate, any of these adjustments, if they apply in your area, leave them selected. We'll have a PDF broken down telling you, okay, for a wood deck, adjust 2100, whatever the value is. And if you don't make an adjustment for maybe these two, whichever ones, just deselect them and we won't provide that info. National Association of Home Builders, this little question mark here is going to explain this area. This percentage here, which is 61.7, that's the amount attributable, can't say that word, to the actual cost of the house, GLA, less any incidentals such as sidewalks, driveways, fences, etc. Now this is pulled from their website. You can right click on this, go to open link in new tab, and then this tab up top you're going to see their website and their information. Now they don't frequently update this unless there's an actual change. So if you scroll down, you'll have the table here which provides their construction cost breakdown, their sales price breakdown, and it tells you above here what this is. It's a construction cost surveys that are provided, or information is collected from the builders on various components. So this is a lot of great information, and as stated, once they update their website, we will update Genie if needed. So we'll close that. And the 61.7 is going to be rounded up, and that's going to go towards the GLA out of the total replacement cost being 100%. So we'll come back to this later and you'll see what I'm referring to. MLS acronym. Now once again we do have to map your MLS, create a custom export. What you'll do once that's done is you'll put your MLS acronym here. You'll see there's up to 8 different boxes. That just means if you use more than one MLS and we set them all up for you, you just put the acronym of each one in here. Now ABOR is Austin Board of Realtors, Intrace is North Texas, and then CRAR is Cedar Rapids. So these are just examples of different MLSs that we've mapped or I use currently. Verification source. Whatever is indicated in these boxes here, that will be entered into the verification source field in the report once we export. Now I would go back to ACI to show you where this is in ACI, but once you launch Genie, you can't move ACI around. It's paused. All you can do is minimize it. But as stated, this goes in a verification source field. So what Genie is going to enter is MLS, assessor, and then we'll pull the list price. Normally, the way it's defaulted, I'll show you, it'll look like that. I don't know why it listed twice, but you don't want it to say MLS Assessor twice. So you can erase this, put whatever you want in there, and that's what's going to go into the report. Or from the drop-down box, you can choose something here that we can pull, like doc number, listing office, list price. I generally just put list price there. The last box just means you could put one more thing there, but remember there's only so much room to enter this, so I don't recommend more than 2. Okay, rights, location, view, whatever you see in these boxes here, that's what's going to export to the report grid. MLS does not give us the view rating, view factor, functional utility, nor does public records. So we just let you guys put something here as a default, and that's what exports over. If there's something in a drop-down box you'd prefer to set there as a default, you can. For example, functional utility, energy efficiency, I just wrote my own, meaning DP installation was not in the drop-down. You'll notice it's not listed anywhere. So if I don't want to use any of these, I just simply typed in what I want it to say there, and that's what's going to show up in the report when we export it under functional utility for the comps. Porch and patio, most MLSs don't clarify if it's covered porch or patio or what type. So typically what you'll see as a default here is CPCP, which is covered porch, covered patio. And since we can't verify it, that's just going to export to the report as is for every comp. If it's easier for you to leave this blank and just look yourself and see if the comps have a porch or patio later, you can leave it blank and that field will just remain blank in the report. Alright, so earlier I was referencing blank row 1, blank row 2, blank row 3. You're going to notice I have fireplace in row 1A and I have pool in row 3A. So technically for each blank row in the report at the bottom, you can put up to 3 things in each row. So if you want a fireplace in row 1, followed by in-law, followed by outdoor kitchen, all of this will show up in blank row 1. And as stated, it can cut some of this off. Generally, I just simply leave 1 in there. Blank row 2, I'll leave blank just because it may vary too much to actually put something in there. And then blank row 3, I'll leave pool in there. And there is a list to drop down. This drop down list means that's information we can actually pull and put in the report, dependent upon whether or not the MLS gives this info to us. If something you use is not in here, you're better off just leaving it blank and completing that later in the report, because if you just type something in there, we have no way to pull that. So I just generally leave this one open. Public records verification, later on when you're choosing the comps for the report, you can tell Genie, okay, when you're verifying my comp information for site, go ahead and default to use public, MLS, or peer. If you're not sure which source to use, maybe you can't rely on MLS or public, you can leave it on Ask Me. And if there's a discrepancy between the 3 sources, you'll have a pop-up box later and it will show you what each one reported. Now peer is just a running average of comps that are used in Appraiser Genie specifically. Nothing proprietary, just general information like site, age, etc., and it's a running average. So peer is totally dependent on how many appraisers use Genie in your area. If you're in Texas, Colorado, maybe California, Florida, those would be states that would probably be pretty good. But when you're in a lot more rural areas, I wouldn't rely on peer, because remember, if you set it to peer and there's nothing in there, you have to manually retrieve this and just type it in yourself. Same way with MLS or public, so I generally recommend Ask Me. Okay, lastly you have the column order. Once again, when you choose the comps for the report, you're going to see all of this information displayed for each comp. If you grab this and drag it down, you'll notice there's a lot of information here. So what you can do is you can move these columns up or down by clicking on them and moving them around, and that'll change the order in which you see this displayed later. And this will definitely help. This may not register as far as what I mean right now, but just remember I have site, age, GLA, year built, sales price, sub, and I'll come back to this later and hopefully to clarify what I'm referring to. Alright, so once we reach the bottom of the page, we're going to scroll back to the top now. And anytime you make any kind of changes, we want to click Save, which I did change the software and a few other things, so we'll click Save now. And once again, you'll notice the little circle, so this tab's loading. Just make sure to let it load, and then you can click on it once that goes away. And while that's loading, there's additional tabs you'll see below defaults that will quickly scan through. They're just additional defaults you can apply to the report, and you can come back and change those at any point if needed as well. Okay, so it looks like it's still loading. Like I stated, it should be much faster for you when you're on your own. And while that loads, I'll go ahead and explain abbreviations. When we click on abbreviations, you're going to see a list of abbreviations for heating, cooling, forced warm air, the different type of heating and cooling elements. So we'll click on that. And these abbreviations are going to be entered into the report. So for example, if the comp has cool window, we're going to enter WDW. If there's heat baseboard, we'll enter BSCBD. These are UAD. You don't have to use these, meaning let's say for Cold Central you don't want CAC, you want something like this. Just type in the box whatever you want the report to say. Most appraisers leave this as is, but you're free to change this if you'd like. Okay, comments. We actually complete quite a few comments for you in the report, and these black headers tell you where the comments go. So I'm going to scroll down and go down to concessions. So under 1004MC you have a concession comment, and this comment here is what's going to be entered into the report for every report. You don't actually have to use these. You could erase this here and copy and paste your own. Maybe you have template comments you use for every report. It's up to you. Or you can leave what you see here, and that's what we'll put in the report. Anything in brackets, that's just information we're pulling for each report. We'll pull the subject MLS, sales quantity, concession predominant, concession max. You can actually add on to this if you just want to write out another sentence, do whatever you need to. And the cool thing about our comments is you can make them as extensive as you'd like. There's a little menu that says quick pick. Let's say you want to add on to this concession comment. You can go down to 1004. Let's say you want to put in there maybe current, and you want to pull sales price, decreasing, stable, increasing. So the decreasing, stable, increasing, when we run the data through Genie, Genie's going to configure or actually calculate if the sales price is decreasing, stable, or increasing. So if you click on that, you'll notice it's right here at the end of this sentence, and we'll pull that information. Obviously, you just don't want to throw brackets in there. You want to type out the sentence around it. So I'm going to erase it. For example, you would type the number of active listings is, and then when you want to pull something, go to quick pick, and it'll populate right after. I think I messed it up. That's okay. Now, as stated, these are pretty cool. There's a lot of comments in here. I'm not going to change any of these. I like what they say. Let's scroll back up. And I don't want to save the change, so I'm not going to click Save here. I'm going to skip that. Definitions, you'll have a page of definitions that's in your work file. So any terminology we use in here, that will be placed in the work file. You don't need to print this or do anything with it. Graphs, you can have up to 10 different graphs. There's graph 1, and all the way at the bottom there's graph 10. Now these are totally dependent on you. You don't have to use them, but if you do want to, you click this drop down, go to month, quarter, year, and then choose below which type of graph you want. So I have month here, and I want it based on dollar per square foot. If I go to graph 2, I want that based on year, and I want it based on the percentage of concessions contribution. Now this is going to be based off your true comp search, so once we narrow your search, from the initial, I think I had 89 in here, 84. Once we narrow this out, however many remain out of that search, that's what's going to be used in the comps, those comps in the graphs here. We only use the true comparables in the graphs we produce, so you'll notice that once you look at them later. Okay, narrator. Now narrator's not working quite yet, but this is pretty cool. We're going to actually provide even more comments, meaning if you make an age adjustment, Genie will put a comment in, bath adjustment, condition or quality, contract comments, comp adjusted range. All of these will be implemented soon. Right now we're just testing them and make sure they work correctly, but we'll notify everyone once this actually works because it's going to fill out quite a bit of the comps. The comments in the reports. Okay, so we're going to scroll back to the top. And lastly, you'll see this password tab. When you go to appraisergenie.com and you sign up for the 10 trials, you create that password. If you ever need to change it, just come back here, type in the new one and repeat it. Okay, so that's the gist of the defaults. This little video will play the video for defaults specifically. If you forget how to do some of this, you just click on the video and you can watch this if you need to. Okay, so once we're done with the defaults, we need to go ahead and start the report. So just like we did earlier, we want to use this backward and forward arrow. We're going to arrow all the way over to the front until we get to input. So now we're going to go ahead and click on the input tab. And as stated, you will always come to the input tab after the very first time. So if you need to come back and change defaults, you do the same thing. You just arrow back over, click on defaults, save whatever you need to, and then arrow back towards the front and click on input. Alright, so this is what you guys will see after the very first time. You're going to have your subject address entered here. I didn't put the parcel or the legal number in the report. I let Genie pull that for me. So if you guys don't know the parcel or legal, if we can pull it from public records, we will, and we'll put this in the report for you. You're just going to fill out this page top going down. We want to start with Enter Effective Date Report. Click the down arrow for the calendar and choose the effective date. We'll just go with today. Next, we want to select the form. The ones towards the top are UAD, and when you scroll towards the bottom, those are non-UAD. And as you see, we do fill out quite a few different forms here. Make sure you have the right one selected. I'm using the 1004 UAD 1 to 4. Now, cost approach, the reason there's the yes or no here is we do have to run cost approach regardless. We use it for depreciation among other things. But if the lender doesn't require that you have cost approach in the report, you can change it to no. If they do, just leave it on yes. Okay, to the right you have the REO addendum, quantitative REO, and listing addendum. These checkboxes here, if you need us to complete the addendum for you, you just select which ones you need. If you don't need any of them, then skip that section. Enter comp search narrowing filters. Now once again, the whole point of Genie is you log into the MLS, create the neighborhood search, which is, I'm going to keep referring back to this file so it makes sense. Once again, it had about 84 comps in here. Now, we don't want all 84 to go in the 1004 MC, and we don't want all 84 to be used for the adjustments. So we want to narrow this down. And the way we do that is we use these parameters here to the left, and it's going to be used against the subject. So for example, site size plus or minus. If I put a 30 here, this percentage tells you it's a percentage, so the comps will have to be within 30% of the subject site size plus or minus. If they're not, they stay in this neighborhood search here, but they will not be able to be picked for the report, and they will not be in the 1004 MC or any of the analysis. So keep in mind that's how that works. You don't want to put something in every single field because you definitely can narrow it too much to the point where you'll kick out absolutely everything and you don't have any comps to choose for the report. If I don't want to use that particular parameter, maybe I don't care to narrow it by site size, stories, whatever it is, just leave the 0 there and we'll ignore it. For stories, let's say you only want to return comps that have the same number of stories as the subject. You could put an equal, and the comps have to have the same number of stories. So if your subject has 2 story and you put an equal, we're only going to return comps that are 2 story. So we're going to go ahead and start kind of wide. I had this file narrowed, but I don't really remember the parameters I used. So I'm going to kind of start wide. I don't want to narrow it too much. So I'm going to start with age being 10. So I only want comps to return if they're 10 years newer or older than my subject. And GLA, I'm going to kind of go 40, leave it open a little bit. And the remainder of this stuff I don't really care to narrow by, and particularly the bedroom, bath. These ones below I don't generally use, and the reason why is this is totally dependent on if the MLS info is correct. So if the realtor doesn't even differentiate above and below, or they don't enter garage space, you can't use these parameters here because there's nothing to narrow by. So be careful with these. These depend on the MLS and the accuracy of the MLS. So I tend to go with more concrete things like GLA, age, maybe site or stories. Reconciliation weighting. This is where I was referring to, where we give you the average reconciliation. Earlier I had told you about the adjusted gross for the adjustments, the gross dollar, net dollar adjustments. That's your reconciliation. This here is a USPAP requirement. You have to score 1 through 10, 10 being most similar between the three approaches. So I generally see a 10 here, meaning you want the full weight on sales comparison, but you can divide it up. Just make sure it adds up to 10. Okay, this next section here, which is highest and best use, pretty straightforward. Top use is current, below is possible, both should be residential. And multifamily displays here by default, but if that's unapplicable, just click the down arrow, click on the blank space, and it gets rid of it. Okay, the next section, land comp sales. Now this section is optional. You only have to enter information in the green boxes if you have raw land sales that need to be reconciled. What you'll do is you'll use the black headers. You put the address here, sales price here, site size here, define the location, adjustment, etc., and you can define the weighting. So if you put something here, that's going to go towards the land value that we derive with extraction allocation. If you don't have any raw land value or raw land sales, you can simply skip this and we'll just complete the land value for you. Square foot method, once again these green boxes mean you can transfer your own information here. Now generally most appraisers don't use this section because we complete it for you with buildingcosts.net for cost approach. But if you want to hang on to your Marshall and Swift subscription, all you do is manually transfer the data they provide you here, and we will use whatever information you input. If you don't want to, as stated, just leave everything as you see it and skip it. Okay, so that's the bottom of the page. We're going to scroll back to the top now. And what we need to do now is we need to grab the file I was showing you guys earlier. So we're going to click on Browse, and we're going to navigate to the file that has my MLS search in it. So this is the file I saved to my computer, which is the one I've been showing you that I've had open at the bottom of the screen. And we want to import this into Genie for all the analysis and the support. So we're going to double click on it. And you're going to notice a little green drop-down box here. Now the cool thing with Appraiser Genie now is if you're an appraiser, maybe you have to pull data from multiple MLSs for whatever reason. You can import more than one file at a time. So let's say I need this one, but I need another one. We'll go back to Browse. And let's say I need this one too. We'll double click on it. And you'll notice there's a drop down for both. We need to know what MLS that file is for. So all you do is click on the drop down and you change it to the MLS acronym, which obviously I test a lot. So you can also just type it in. And let's just say these are both in trace. So what we'll do is both of these will be uploaded. If there's any duplicate addresses in there, we'll kick it out, make sure it doesn't overlap or anything. Obviously I don't want both in here, I just need one, just letting you know that you can import up to 10 I think. So we're going to click this X to get rid of it. And this is the file I want to use, and this is my MLS acronym, so I'm going to click Start New Report now. Okay, so Genie's going to upload that MLS file. We're going to scrub the MLS data, we're going to verify every address, we're going to make it UAD compliant. So we'll let this load here. Okay, and we have a geocoder, so we're going to pull the longitude, latitude, pull the distance for each comp against the subject. So the more you have in here, the longer that can take, which should still take under minutes. Alright, so this pop-up box here, what you're going to see here is the subject information that's pulled from your ACI report. So we repopulate this here. We want you to look at it, make sure everything's correct. If you need to change anything you see here, you'll want to do that real quick and then click Next once you're done. The quality rating here is very important. Make sure you have the right quality rating. Same thing with the condition. And now we're going to click Next. Now we're going to be taken to our narrowed comp search. So since we narrowed it by age and GLA, I believe, we're going to see how many comps met that criteria. So out of the 84 here, we're going to see how many remain after I narrowed it. So let's minimize that. This little pop-up box you guys won't see, but you will see this counter here. So I had over 82 comps in there, and since I narrowed it down to 24. So you'll notice I have 20 sold, 4 pending, I don't have any actives, and there's no other statuses like canceled, withdrawn. Once you get to this page here, which this blue tab tells you it's comp search, this is ideally your 1004MC. So if you get here and you feel maybe you narrowed it too much, maybe narrowing it, down to 24 is going to make your 1004MC inaccurate. You just need more data in general. You go back and click on this input tab. That's going to take you back to the home page. You fill it out like we just did, and all you do is widen the parameters. So instead of using plus or minus age 10, I could have widened it to 15, and instead of doing GLA 40, I could have used something else, things like that. We're not going to go back for that, but you guys can because you're in control of what you see right here. Now the 20 sold, on this page I'll have 20 solds, which are indicated by this S down here, and the P is pending. So out of this data set, only the 20 here are going to be used for regression analysis and match pair analysis. And of course, as stated, if there's any actives on here, that's going to be used for the 1004MC along with the solds. And earlier I showed you guys, or I had mentioned in defaults, that you can reorder column headers. And I advise you to make sure you remember the site, age, GLA, year built, sales price, sub. You'll notice I see this information automatically, meaning I don't have to go down here and grab this horizontal bar and scroll back and forth trying to look for what's important for me when I pick the comps for the report. So that's why I take advantage of that ordering in the defaults and just set it here. So I always use site, age, GLA, these parameters here, so I don't really have to narrow, scroll across or do anything. I just immediately see what I want to know. Now we do put this page in order for you, top going down. We start with closest proximity to the subject, followed by most recently sold and least adjusted. So according to those parameters or those defaults, 50 Scott Place is the closest property to my subject. Now I like to give you guys a couple pointers. Distance is totally dependent on whether or not the realtor even enters the address correctly. We verify these addresses with the Postal Service, and then of course we pull the longitude and latitude, which is how we get the distance. Some MLSs give us the longitude and latitude, and if they do, then you can rely on that. But if we drag this across, we'll have a column header labeled distance, and we can scroll and look and see if distance was calculated. So right here is distance. If there's a 0, it either means it's the subject, or we can pull the distance, and then as you go down, this is 0.2, which is 0.2 miles from the subject, and you can scroll down and it just gets farther away as you go down. So you don't have to use our ordering. You can actually reorder this in the sense that maybe you want to order GLA highest to lowest or vice versa. You can click on GLA. It's going to load, and it looks like it's going lowest to highest up towards the bottom here, and you can click on it again and it should go highest to lowest. Okay, so you can do that with any column header here. It could be sales price, you can do it alphabetically, whatever works for you. And once you do that or decide on the ordering, you can click the comps you want to use for the report. So you need at least 3 sold, and I'm not sure the limit for ACI as far as how many you could put in the report, but keep that in mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and choose some comps that I want to use in the report. So I'm just going to go with this one here, 50 Scott Place, Cannon, and Harrison. Now I don't have very many comps here, I only have 24, so it didn't take me very long to look through here. But if you're in a much larger area, maybe your 1004 MC consists of 100 or however many, you can enter Control F as in find on your keyboard. You have a little pop-up box here. And if you already know what you're looking for as far as the street number or street name, just type in the street number like so. And you'll notice down here towards the bottom it highlights it in orange. That's a really cool feature if you have a ton of comps that you're trying to look through. Some appraisers already know which ones they want in the report at this point. So remember Control F as in find. That way you can just jump to the info wherever it is on the page. So we'll close that. Alright, so if you do click on these column headers like we did, and let's say you don't want to reorder GLA, you just want to go back to the distance, most recently sold, least adjusted, the natural ordering we put it in, you could click on Reset Sort Order, it's going to load, and it's simply going to put these comps back in the order they were in. And if you remember earlier, Scott Place was the first comp up here. And you'll notice since I just simply went by GLA, these were not the comps towards the top. And distance, most recently sold, least adjusted, those are good qualifiers to use when determining the comps you want. But you can still, of course, scroll down here and find different ones. It's up to you. So I'm just going to go with the ones I have. Now, if you need to refer back to the subject info, maybe you forgot what the subject site was, the subject's age, you could click on subject. It just gives you this pop-up box again. You don't have to do anything with it and click next. Now, if you create an accurate neighborhood and save it to your computer and narrow it, ideally you shouldn't have any outliers on this page, but for whatever reason, maybe you see this address here and the GLA was 4,000 square feet, the age was 82 years old, maybe the site was 2 acres. Whatever the case is, if there is an outlier here, you'll want to get rid of it. So all you do is you click on the address just like you did the other ones. You'll click on Delete Selected Comps. You're going to click on Yes. We're not going to do that. But if you click on Yes, it kicks it out of here. So if you have outliers, get rid of those first. Click Delete Selected Comps, then go through here and check the comps you want to use for the report. Now, that's all you do on this page. Since we have the comps we want to use, we're going to click on Next. Now, what Genie is going to do is we're going to take the 3 or the 4 I wanted in the report, and this is where we verify public records against MLS, against peer. Now you'll remember in my defaults I left everything on Ask Me, so Genie found a discrepancy. It's saying for 50 Scott Place for site, my MLS is saying 17,380, public's pretty close with 17,398, and peer is 17,380. That means the average entry in our peer database, they apparently went with MLS. So you'll just go through here and choose which source do you want to use. Do you want to use MLS for this, public or peer? The top buttons will step you through each discrepancy, meaning if there's another discrepancy, you'll have the pop-up, and it'll just tell you the different address or the field, and it will walk you through each one. If you don't want to go through each one, and maybe you just want to use MLS for the rest, or public or peer, that's what the bottom boxes are for. I don't generally recommend that you just skip through everything and use the same one, because as an appraiser, obviously, you'll want to review this. So I usually just use the top and go through them individually. So I'm going to go with MLS. Okay, you'll see the same address. The next field is age. MLS is saying 47, public 48, peer 47. Now the cool thing with peer is for whatever reason, if MLS and public are both wrong, you actually can type the correct value in here and just go to use peer, and it will use whatever value you put in there. So none of this is in stone, because I have seen where public and MLS are both wrong. Just kind of depends on where you are and how updated everything is. So for the demo purposes or the webinar, I'm just going to go with use all public. Notice how the pop-up box went away. So if there were any more discrepancies, we just went with public records automatically. Okay, on the left-hand side, you'll have your subject info if you scroll down. You're going to see all this information entered. That comes from page 2 of the report in ACI. Or if you guys forgot to enter some of this, maybe you didn't know the age, we'll try to fill this in with public records if we need to. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to want to look at the comps you chose for the report. You're going to grab this horizontal bar and just go straight over. Here's my first comp, 50 Scott. If you scroll down, once again, all of this information entered comes from public records, MLS, or peer, depending on what you chose. Scroll over. Comp 2, 849 Canon, all the data's here. Comp 3, 818 Harrison, and lastly I have Comp 4, 737 Bird. Now you'll definitely want to look through here. If anything's blank, by all means you'll want to correct that. There are certain things you can't leave blank because we need them for adjustments. So for example, this value here, if you look straight across, it tells you it's GLA. So if this was blank, it would be highlighted yellow, and that's how Genie alerts you. It's just basically saying, hey, look at this. I need you to put in a GLA so I can contribute that value to the adjustment. So if this was blank and yellow, you would just type in the correct value and then just click out of the box somewhere, and it will make the box white, and it will update whatever you put in the cell here. Now I don't think we have any in this case, but I tell you guys that is a disclaimer so you're not alarmed when you see it on your own. Now if any of these boxes are pink, let's say you're running through Genie and for whatever reason this first comp for GLA once again is pink, it's not an alert. All it's saying is we use public records to fill that in. So the pink boxes, if you ever see them, you don't need to do anything with them. They're just letting you know public was used. Now we went with public records to verify this data, but sometimes when I have a remote software running so you guys can see my screen, the pink box doesn't pop up. So if anyone was wondering, well, where are the pink boxes, that's probably that reason. So generally when you run it on your own, you'll just see the pink. And there's a column in between each comp here. It says Genie Peer Database, meaning if these comps were ran through the Genie, unless we're updating the peer database, you'll just see the information entered here. So for example, this 9 here, if we go across rooms, this is total rooms, bed, bath. So for this comp, 849 Canyon, this is total rooms, bed, bath. If this comp had been ran through, it would say in the middle here, the total rooms, bed, bath. So it would show you what's been averagely used for this comp here. We are updating the peer database, so there's not going to be anything that shows in here today. But you guys will just see this populated on your own if that's applicable. Alright, so what we want to do is arrow back over and get to the adjustment part. This black header says adjustment, and when you scroll down, this tells you the type of adjustment Genie provides for you. You don't by any means have to use all of these adjustments. Some of them may or may not produce an adjustment, depends on the amount of data that we're provided. But what you'll do, if you want to actually click on the adjustment, meaning put it in the report, you can just click on them. So for age, looks like there's no match pair, which you'll never see with age. Allocation's blank. You do have 800 here, and regression is a negative number. Now, we didn't have very many solds to begin with regression, because remember, it only runs off the narrowed search, which I think was about 20 solds. You're not going to have really accurate results with regression if you have 20 solds. Ideally, we don't really endorse regression. We just put this in here because we wanted to provide all 4 methods and let you guys decide. But regression does not really work that well unless you have crazy amounts of data. You know, I'm talking 500 or 600 solds. If you're able to retrieve that, by all means you can use it. But I don't generally see that applicable. It's up to you, of course. Just consider that if you decide to use a regression adjustment. Now the cool thing is once you get to this page here, which is the side-by-side, once you reach this page, you can actually click on all of these tabs at the top, because at this point all your adjustments and analysis has been ran. So for example, maybe you want to know why this age adjustment is saying 800. So that's going to be 800 per year difference subject to comp. So 38 from 47. Now remember, my defaults under age variance, I think I put a 5 there, meaning I didn't want to adjust for comps that are 5 years newer or older. So if that applies and I click on this, it's not going to make an adjustment because it knows to skip over that. Anything over that difference will adjust $800 per year. So for example, if you guys want us to put the adjustment in the grid, you click on them. So if I click on this, it's going to load blue. And here's my first comp, 47 to 38. If I scroll over, it's going to make an adjustment there. This one here, it's going to make an adjustment there. And this one here, etc. So that's an example of us making an adjustment. Remember, the ones you click on, we put the adjustment in the grid in the report. If you don't click on them, we don't put the adjustment in the grid. But you get the backup for every single one of these adjustments, whether or not you want them in the report. So for bath, if you look at this value here, 1800, that's an 1800 bath adjustment. If it's a half bath, it will be half of this. But if you have questions on where this number came, why are we giving you an $1,800 adjustment? You look up, that says allocation. So we're going to have a tab that says allocation. We're going to use this forward arrow and click on allocation. And it's going to tell us more about this number here and how we got this. Now keep in mind all these tabs will be converted into a PDF. So everything I'm doing, if it doesn't resonate or make a lot of sense right now, this will all be provided for every single report. So we scroll down. This allocate percentage of total value. Earlier, you'll remember referencing the total replacement cost, meaning the total cost of 100%. And the GLA is 62%. So once again, we rounded up that 61.7 we were provided from the National Association of Home Builders, and we rounded it to 62. So what we do is we take this 62%, we divide that into the average dollar per square foot, which is 76, and that's based on the comps you choose for the report, and that's going to give you the dollar adjustment. So that's GLA. So when we go back to side by side, you'll see a $47 adjustment for GLA based on allocation. Garage would be 14, interior exterior amenities 15, and here's my garage space, 3,100. And this is completely broken down with percentages here. So earlier in the defaults, you probably remember me deselecting granite because I didn't want an adjustment. So it's going to be blank across the board because I didn't want it. And I think, yeah, fence and sprinkler, same thing. I didn't want an adjustment, so it's just going to be blank across the board. But the remainder of these, when I scroll all the way over, it'll tell me the dollar value adjustment, and then it breaks it down as to what was contributed as far as an adjustment for that. Let's scroll down. Here's the average dollar per square foot from comps. If I just keep going and scroll all the way over, it's going to take the dollar per square foot for each comp, meaning I chose 4, and then it averages it out to 76. And when I go back up here, that's why 76 was used. So remember, allocation uses the percentages out of the total replacement cost. So the total cost being 100, we just allocate percentages out of that into this average dollar per square foot. You go to extraction. Extraction's obviously a little different. It's market driven. So you'll see the market driven GLA adjustment. Any formulas used, very easy to read. For example, A times B plus C times D. That's A, that's B, that's C, that's D, and you just go across the page. Not hard to read at all. So we're going to see the $47, that's going to be based on GLA for extraction. And once again, this will all be in the report for you, broken down just like you see it here. Okay, so we're going to go back to the adjustment grid. We're going to use this arrow and go back to side by side. Alright, so what I'll do now is if I want to click on any of the other adjustments, like the time per month here, land value, these two, you can go to the land tab. It'll tell you more about this. And as you see, regression's crazy high, which, like I said, it's not going to be that accurate in this case, so I don't recommend using this. But what you can do is, let's say you like the GLA adjustment. You could click on whichever one you want. They're all pretty on par, which is a good thing. It means all 3 methods derived almost the same value. So that's good. We're just going to click on whichever method we want to use. We'll go 47 here. Click on that. It turns blue. And then straight across here, here's your first comp's GLA, and here's the adjustment, and then you just go straight across the board. Now some of these I don't really care to click on. It's totally up to you guys what you do or do not do. This is 3100 per garage space, and that's the carport 1550. It is important to note that you'll see fireplace in blank row 1 and pool in row 3, and that's because I have them set that way in the defaults. So remember, fireplace always in blank row 1. If I click on this and there's a fireplace adjustment to be made, it's going to take this comp and it's going to adjust it if there's a difference. Obviously 1 and 1 there will be no adjustment, but that's where fireplace will go. And pool, same thing. Pool adjustment here, if there's a pool or a difference, it will just go straight down here. Now fence or covered patio, if there's an adjustment here, don't waste your time clicking on them. We don't put it in the report grid. There's nowhere to put it, and like I said earlier, covered patio, 99% of MLSs do not even indicate if it's a covered patio. And fence comes from buildingcosts.net for the allocation value, and that's pretty much a general fence. So don't click on these two. They're there, and we'll show you what the adjustment is, but you'll want to do that yourself later. Okay, so what we're going to do now, once we've clicked on everything we want in the report, we're going to go to Export to Report. We're going to let this load, meaning you don't have to touch anything. Just let it hang here for a minute. Alright, so this pop-up box, this is just referring to the land value we were able to derive. Allocation came out to 11.6, extraction 13,000, and then you have regression doing its crazy adjustment there. So what you'll do is whatever you click here, that's going to go into the opinion of site value and the cost approach. You can click on which one you feel is more accurate. If you don't want to use any of these, click on none. I'm going to go with the 11.6 and click next. Once again, we're going to let this box load. We're not going to touch anything. And I stress that because if you do get click happy, you can cause it to not export. Just kind of let it sit here, do its thing. Shouldn't take long. Alright, so once again, this little pop-up box here, when this populates, ignore this for the moment. Genie wants to know if the report exported correctly. Well, we have no way to know that unless we go look at ACI. So we're going to leave this alone. We're just going to go back down to ACI and click on it. And remember, this little pop-up box, if we get back to ACI and this box is still showing up, let it sit here. It means it's not done transferring the data, so all we can do is just let this sit here and it should launch on its own. It should give you a pop-up telling you it's successful in the moment. Generally it doesn't take this long. You guys can obviously feel free to fast forward. Okay, there we go. So see how it's just moving around on its own? That's what you want to wait for, this little pop-up here letting you know that it was successfully imported. You'll click OK. And remember, we fill in the public record information, which was not in the report beforehand. We'll fill in the winning housing trends, the price, age, high-low pre-dom. We can go down the cost approach. We will put a comment here. That'll be in there. Of course, you have your cost approach filled out here. Now, before I forget, I'm going to go back here and show you guys the bulk of the work file, which is the most important aspect that Genie provides you. So we're going to go down here on this little folder and click this. We want to go to our Documents folder. It's going to be in the same place for you guys. You'll click on Documents. You're going to see a folder labeled Appraiser Genie. Double click on that. 2017 means every report that you run with Genie in 2017 will be here. Of course, next year you'll have a folder generated labeled 2018, and every comps or reports that you run in 2018 will be in there. So we'll double click on this. I've ran quite a few reports in here, and I've ran this one multiple times, but you'll just look at the date modified and the time, and we'll just automatically name the folder whatever the subject address is. So we'll double click on that. You have some graphs in here. The graphs may or may not be honestly that great. Depends on how many comps you have. We can click on a couple. That one didn't look like it had anything. Let's see if this one did. Alright, so for example, this one looks okay here based on the quarter percentage of sales, but you'll notice this one flatlined. So this really depends on how much narrowed data you have. We didn't have very many in there, which may or may not be typical for you, but some of these graphs will produce awesome information, just depends on what you import. But what you're going to want to do now is this work file folder. We want to double click on that. And all of the tabs that you saw in Genie that I was going through, they're now converted into a PDF and shown here. So let's say you have a question about the allocation. You can double click on it. In the PDF we went over earlier where I showed you the percentages, 62, etc., that's broken down and just placed here. Same thing with extraction. You can double click on that. Extraction's broken down. Any formulas used are plainly listed here. Let's see if there's any graphs that produced anything. You see, histogram doesn't have much either. Land, if you double click on land, the land extraction method will be broken down here, and then you have your land allocation method here. Now one thing I didn't show you is we do pull the assessor improvement value and the assessor land value from your local county assessor. And these you can actually change. If you click on the land tab once you get to the side-by-side in Genie, you can actually overwrite these values. Maybe your county assessor isn't reliable or they're severely outdated. You can actually update the values you see in these boxes here, and that actually will recalculate the land value. So this isn't in stone. We pull as much as we can for you, but if you need to modify anything, you can. Now, I believe you can insert these PDFs into the report. It may take me a minute. I'm trying to remember how we do that. I think you go to eServices, import from PDF to report, and I don't know this criteria, so I'm not even going to enter it, but you guys should be able to do that. You just go to that tool there. You can import the PDFs. It'll just show up at the very bottom of this content manager down here, and you can do whatever you'd like with the PDFs. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the demo today. As you see, it is pretty quick to use. One thing we need to do, now that we verified the data is in the report, we'll go back to Appraiser Genie, and now we can answer this question. We're going to go ahead and click on yes. And in one moment, we'll just have this here. You may now close this window. So what we can do is close this because we're completely done. So that's the process of running Genie with ACI, start to end. If you guys want to watch this video, go to appraisergenie.com, click on the training tab. If you want to sign up for future webinars, go back to appraisergenie.com, click on the training tab, and there is an option to sign up for webinars in the future. Please call 325-704-2592 if you need our sales line. If you want to get your MLS set up, please email MLS@appraisergenie.com or give us a call at 325-701-9012. Thank you. I appreciate everyone attending today. Have a good day.